Hey guys, Tyler here from GarageWarrior.com, where I show you how to get stronger, live longer, look good naked, and live the life of your dreams. Now this is part 3 of a 4-part series where we're talking about macronutrients, we're talking about the principles that you need to optimize your fat loss hormones, build your health, and increase your performance in your workouts. So if you haven't watched number 1 or number 2, it's crucial that you watch those 2 first before moving on to this 3rd video. You can probably find them on this website or right below me. So we were talking about macronutrient ratios and how to optimize your fat loss hormones through macronutrient ratios. I just covered carbohydrates in the last video, so check that out. Now I'm going to talk about protein and fat, okay? Now protein and fat are interesting topics because a lot of people are concerned about too high of protein or too high of fat, and I'm going to kind of dispel some of the myths that talk about protein and fat. So protein is first, right? Okay, so protein is a pretty cool macronutrient simply because it's the building blocks of our metabolic tissue. So you're built up of proteins. Now, one of the pivotal mistakes I see when I go to a consultation, I talk to somebody for the first time before they're starting a workout program, is that they're not consuming enough protein. Now, I'm not one of those bodybuilding coaches like you got to eat like a gram per pound or 2 grams per pound every single day. However, especially when somebody has some fat to lose, you want to make sure that you have an adequate amount of protein so that when you're training, you're actually rebuilding muscle mass so you can boost your metabolism, okay? Let me explain that more in a second. Most people need to eat a little bit more protein, and I'll give you some guidelines of what I recommend people try out for themselves to see if it works for helping them recover from their workouts faster, build muscle, and burn fat. So I generally tell people, women, you should probably be eating between 100 and 150 grams per day, and men, you should be eating between 150 and 200 grams per day. Now that's depending on how big you are and what type of appetite you have and how many calories you're consuming throughout the day. But for the most part, if we just stick to these 2 guidelines right here, people do pretty good in their protein consumption. And of course, we want to spread those protein meals evenly throughout the day. Now I'm not saying you have to have 5 meals throughout the day. You could have 3 or you could even have 2, but it's pretty hard to eat 100 grams of protein at each meal if you're a guy and you're aiming for that 200 gram threshold. So break it up throughout the day. I prefer to consume the majority of my protein first thing in the morning. That way I keep my blood sugar levels regulated and I'm well prepared for rebuilding my muscle mass when I do my afternoon workouts. So stick to those gram guidelines for protein. The cool thing about protein is this, is I'm not a fan of calorie counting. I think it's a really bad way to go about approaching a nutrition program because you either need to be psychotic and neurotic in order to stick to it, or you need to be training for some sort of bodybuilding or weight cutting competition, which I understand that's a sport and you have to do that to compete at the highest levels. But calorie counting just doesn't work on the long run. Like in fact, I'm pretty sure the statistic is 95.4% of people fail on a calorie-based diet. So when people try to just eat less and move more, 19 out of 20 people fail. And another interesting stat that I heard was that 5.3% of people succeed quitting smoking cold turkey with no support. So you're more likely to succeed quitting smoking cold turkey with no support than to actually get great results following a calorie-based diet. So please don't do that. But when you eat enough protein, you consume it throughout the day, your body receives these signals that tell us to stop eating. Think about it like this. If you've ever had a chicken breast before and you're like, oh dude, I'm so done, I cannot eat any more chicken breast. But somebody could pass some pasta or some dessert in front of you, you could chow it down, right? Protein has this way of regulating your appetite that no other macronutrient really does. So protein is pretty magical. And I believe there was a study done on prisoners, and they did this on prison population because they couldn't find anybody else to do it, where they basically said one group can eat as much food as they want, as many calories as they want, and they'll continue giving it to them of any macronutrient. And the other group was, you can eat as much food as you want, we encourage you to eat as much food as you want, and you can only have protein, right? And the group that ate only protein could only consume 2,000, 2,500 calories per day. And the scientists said it was Herculean feats that they could eat this 2,000 calories of protein per day because it was so challenging for them to kill that brain block that told them stop eating when they were eating enough protein. And then the other group, just as a side note, that ate carbohydrates and fat and protein and anything they wanted, they were consuming 10,000 calories a day and going to bed still hungry because their body was lit up with all these hunger hormones, things like leptin and stuff like that. So we want to make sure that we consume adequate amounts of protein. so that we regulate our appetite and we can recover well from our workouts. Now on to the last and most controversial macronutrient, my good friend, Mr. Fat, okay? In the last 30, 40 years, fat has been like demonized. It's this macronutrient that people are like, eat fat, get fat. And at one point when I was younger, I remember thinking to myself, holy shit, all I gotta do is not eat fat and I won't get fat. And so what did I do? I went to Costco with my parents and I bought a huge bag of gummy worms that had 0 grams of fat in it. Of course, there was like 30 grams of sugar per serving, but as long as I didn't eat fat, I wouldn't gain fat. Well, lo and behold, I got so unhealthy because of that. I started dropping a little weight because I was regulating my calories at the same time, but I started having night sweats, night terrors, brain fog. I felt terrible when I was not eating enough fat. And the reason why is fat makes your hormones. So people who go too low fat, they start complaining about bad skin, bad sleep, depression, all sorts of different issues that come from not consuming enough fat. Now, fat is just our alternative fuel source to carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are the high-intensity fuel, whereas fat is our low-intensity fuel. So we consume fat via when we're in starvation mode and we're using that energy, right? As well as when we become fat adapted, when our metabolism becomes really good at switching from sugar burning mode over to fat burning mode. So what are my rules and regulations for fat? It's really simple. Eat as much as your body requires, which means you have to cultivate the ability to listen to your own body, but we follow one rule. They're neither good nor bad, right? As long as they come from real food, right? And if something was made in a factory, right, that looks like a crazy power plant, looks like a smokestacks and stuff, it's not good for you. Don't eat it, right? So we want to look at the real food options: avocados, nuts and seeds, high quality meats, grass-fed butter, things like that. Those are the things we want to consume for our fat sources. And believe it or not, people who consume more fat generally become leaner. Another study I really like to quote is a study done on college students where they took 3 groups of people and each group had to consume 90% of their calories from one of the 3 macronutrients, protein, carbs, or fat, and each group was going to eat only 1,000 calories per day. Now, the cool thing about this is when they ate 1,000 calories per day, we knew they were going to lose weight, because nobody can't lose weight off 1,000 calories per day unless your metabolism is totally deranged. So the group that ate 90% carbohydrates lost 0.25 pounds of fat per day. The group that ate 90% protein lost 0.4 pounds of fat per day, and the final group that ate 90% fat lost 0.9 pounds of fat per day. The group that ate the most fat lost the most fat. So that is absolutely crucial when you're approaching your nutrition program, is understanding this protein, carbohydrate, and fat ratios and finding out the macronutrients that work best for you. So try out the ratios we talked about already in your nutrition program, and hopefully that'll help benefit your health, your performance, and your body composition at the same time. Thanks for watching. I got one more video for you, so check it out.